Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and I wanted to show you how I maintain my battery health as close to 100% as possible. And of course you're going to say, you've got an 11 Pro Max, it's going to be as close to 100%. But I wanted to show you how I maintain it on phones that have been used for as much as 1 year all the way up to 3 years of regular use. And so here I have 4 different phones, and I'm going to go over each one of them, their usage, and what their battery health is like. Then we're going to talk about the things that you can do to maintain that battery health. There's a lot of different information out there, and I'll just show you what I do, and you can read all of these different papers about what they tell you to do, but with an iPhone, it's much simpler than I think you realize. So you cannot maintain 100% permanently while you're using your phone, and that's just the nature of lithium-ion batteries. They have a set number of cycles before they'll actually degrade. And Apple actually says that after 2 years, you can expect about 80% of your battery health remaining. 20% should be depleted at that point, or close to that, but you can do better than that as well. So here I have an iPhone 6s Plus, and you'll see it has some usage. It's got some staining around it. In fact, the front has some scratches on it. And this particular phone has been used at least 3 years full time. And if we go into the settings and go to battery, you'll see this one is the only phone that is not currently in full-time use, but the battery health on this one is 85%. So 85% is pretty good. Apple says 80% after 2 years is the expected usage on these phones. So let me set this down and we'll move on to the next. And the next one is a jet black iPhone 7. I've shown this in my videos before. Some people have said it's an iPhone 8, but it's actually jet black, and it's a 7, and this came out a few years ago in 2016. This is an aluminum surface that's painted. So let's go ahead and take a look at the battery health. So if we go into settings, we'll go to battery, we'll wait for it to load, and you'll notice that it has a SIM card in it. It's got Signal, and it's been used over the last 10 days or so. We'll go to battery health, and this one is at 87%. So that's pretty good. It's in full-time usage. In fact, this was used full-time by my wife for a couple of years, and then it was used by other people after that until the iPhone 10 came out. Now, if we look at the iPhone 10 that we have here, you can tell that by the different speaker holes on the bottom. We have the 10s over here, but the iPhone 10 will go into the settings, we'll go to battery, and we'll wait for it to load. Again, it has normal Signal, and you'll see it was used regularly over the past 10 days or so, and it has 91% battery health. So this one's doing pretty well after 2 years, full-time use after 2 years. And then finally, we have the iPhone XS. This is the most heavily used phone out of all of them. And if we go to settings, we'll go over to battery here. Again, you'll see the usage here, 4 hours of screen on time, or 4 hours and 15 minutes of screen on time. The battery health is 94%. And like I said, this is the most heavily used phone of all of them. And so I wanted to show you how I keep these as good as possible when it comes to battery health. And the first thing you need to understand is heat is your #1 enemy of battery. In fact, maintaining a regular temperature of around 75 degrees Fahrenheit or about 23 degrees Celsius is really the ideal temperature for lithium-ion batteries. And if you are in a climate that's 100 degrees or very, very warm all the time, and you're charging it and using it, it's going to degrade the battery more quickly than it is in a climate that is always mild or moderate. And unfortunately, in some areas, you just can't do anything about that. Where I live, thankfully, most things are air conditioned, and most places are anywhere between about 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit at any given time between cars or homes and things like that. So that is going to be your #1 factor. And if you're using a phone while charging it, that's absolutely fine. In fact, this iPhone 10 was used while playing games and charging at the same time. But again, if you're in a warm climate, take the case off of it, because you may have a lot of heat buildup behind it and it will get very warm. However, Apple is very aggressive at actually managing the battery temperature and the heat. So they'll actually pull the voltage down and actually slow the processor down to keep the phone from overheating. So that's some of the things you can do. So if you're using a case that's completely sealing the phone off, maybe a life-proof case or something like that, consider removing it while charging it. So using it while playing games is completely fine as long as it's not 100 degrees all the time. So just keep that in mind. And then the other thing is this is going to be more controversial because a lot of people say keep your phone between 20 and 80%. Well, every one of these phones was charged all night long, every single night. And the reason I normally say to do this is because keeping it closer to 100%, and keep in mind you cannot overcharge your phone. Once it hits 100%, the iPhone will actually pull the voltage down and just trickle charge the phone. So keeping it at 100% is actually not cycling your battery. When your battery is cycling, say down to 10% and then back up to 100, it only has a certain amount of cycles that it can handle. So keeping it closer to 100 is actually cycling it less. Or, for example, the other thing is, now that we have optimized battery charging, this is even better. So this will charge it to 80%, hold it there until it normally senses movement in the morning. When this feature is fully working, that's what it does. So when it senses movement, it knows I need to be fully charged by, say, 8 a.m. So I'll charge to 80%, hold it there until we get close enough that I know I can maintain that charge, and then charge up to 100% by the time the phone is in use. So as long as it's doing that, that's even better, because to keep it at 100% is not as good as keeping it below that, but trying to maintain that is really not worth your time, because you're only going to save 1 to 3% of this battery health over the period of 2 years. So trying to manage all of that, I tell people charge this overnight. And in fact, this phone was in the case and charged on this Samsung fast charger every single night that's wireless. So I use a wireless charger, charge it like that, and this has 91% battery health after 2 years of usage. And then finally, the last question is, should I fast charge or not? It doesn't matter if you're fast charging it. I actually use a MacBook Pro charger on my phone all of the time. On my iPhone 11 Pro Max, my XS Max. It's not that much voltage. In fact, if you compared it to, say, a car, such as a Tesla, they're pushing 40 to 60 amps into the car at once. And these are nowhere near that. So they are maintaining the temperature of the battery, and that's the key. My iPhone XS Max, which I actually have only used for 6 months until the newer phones came out, this one has 100% battery health, and this was my everyday phone for 6 months. So if we go to the battery health, it's at 100%. And this was my main phone for the past 6 months until the 11 Pro Max came out. But if you have a phone that came with the 5-watt charger, use that, or use an iPad charger. And while this was being played with games such as Mario Run, while charging, it was being used with a iPad charger. So you really can use whatever you need to. Like I said, Apple is very aggressive at managing the heat within the phone. So I tell people, don't worry about it. And that is how I've charged every one of my phones. And the other thing is, I charge this throughout the day. When it's in my car, it's plugged into a charger. So I have CarPlay in some of my cars, or I used to, and in other cars, I just have a charger. I leave it on the charger all the time when I'm driving because I'm using those features. If I'm using navigation, that uses a lot of power, so I leave it on the charger. There's no harm in doing that. And in fact, like I said, unless you're in an environment where it's very hot all of the time, just enjoy your phone and use it. All of these phones have never had their battery replaced, and they've held up this well. So hopefully that helps you maintain your battery health. Just enjoy using your phone, charge it when you need to, and that's it. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description as I always do. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.